Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? The more I go into it, the more suspect it is.
We provided additional information today about the site of my birth.
A plane crashed into the waters off Kalaupapa, Molokai today. It was carrying 8 passengers and 1 pilot.
Officials say the director of Hawaii's health department, Loretta Fuddy, was killed. 8 other people were on board, including a pilot. They all survived.
Loretta Jean Fuddy was born on April 12, 1948, to Louis and Evelyn Fuddy in Honolulu, Hawaii. She was known by those close to her as Deliana. Loretta Fuddy grew up in a Honolulu suburb called Kaimuki and graduated from Sacred Hearts Academy, an all-girls Catholic prep school. She went on to earn degrees in sociology, social work, and public health at the University of Hawaii and Johns Hopkins University. After graduating, Fuddy began a long career in public service as a social worker in maternal and child care. She held many positions over decades working for the Hawaii State Department of Health. Fuddy won numerous awards within her field for her outstanding public service. She was involved in the Subud interfaith spiritual movement and also a member of a local Catholic church where she sang in the choir. On March 2, 2011, Loretta Fuddy was appointed as the director of the Hawaii State Department of Health by then-Governor Neil Abercrombie. She had previously served as acting director and deputy director for the department. Fuddy was the first social worker ever to be appointed director of health in Hawaii. Around this time, there was a growing uproar from American conservatives. They were calling for then-President Barack Obama to produce his original long-form birth certificate as proof that he was born in the United States.
Is he President of the United States? According to the Constitution, in order to be eligible for president, you have to be a natural-born citizen. He has refused to provide proof that he is, in fact, a natural-born citizen.
Release your original signed birth certificate, if you have one, thus proving your birth on American soil, and thus assure the American people you are lawfully eligible to hold the office of the presidency and serve as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces.
There are those who claim that he was born dumb in a different country. The president, obviously, all he has to do is just produce the original birth certificate in Hawaii and be done with it.
Among the loudest of these voices was the future 45th president, Donald Trump, who at the time was a business mogul with no formal involvement in politics.
Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? And you know what? I wish he would, because I think it's a terrible pall that's hanging over him. He should show his birth certificate.
Of course, he's an American
because
citizen.
If you're going to be the president of the United States, it says very profoundly that you have to be born in this country.
The issue of Obama's birthplace originated early in his run for president. It came about because multiple publications had listed his birthplace as outside of the U.S. During the 2008 Democratic presidential primary election, speculation and rumors about Obama's birthplace began in conservative online message boards. In April 2008, a campaign staffer for Democratic challenger Hillary Clinton sent an email repeating a variant of these rumors about Obama being born in Kenya instead of Hawaii. Sidney Blumenthal, a close confidant of the Clintons, had a meeting with McClatchy journalist James Asher in which he strongly urged him to investigate the exact place of Obama's birth, which he suggested was in Kenya. Blumenthal later denied saying this. It should be noted that Sidney Blumenthal has a questionable reputation for journalistic integrity, while James Asher is a respected journalist who later went on to win a Pulitzer Prize. In response to the rumors, Barack Obama released a copy of his certification of live birth on June 12, 2008, just days after he clinched the Democratic presidential nomination. The speculation about Obama's birthplace did not end there and persisted throughout his first term as president. Because the certification of live birth was not the original birth certificate, questions remained about what may or may not be on the original long-form document. However, Hawaii Department of Health policy prohibited the public release of these long-form documents. A 2010 CNN poll found that 27% of Americans were doubtful that President Obama was born in the United States. In early March of 2011, a few days after Loretta Fuddy became director of the Department of Health, Donald Trump did several interviews where he talked about being skeptical of Obama's citizenship.
Everybody that even gives any hint of being a birther
a word you didn't use. Even a little bit of a hint, like, gee, maybe, just maybe, this much of a chance. They label them as an idiot. Let me tell you, I'm a really smart guy. I was a really good student at the best school in the country. The reason I have a little doubt, just a little, is because he grew up and nobody knew him. When you interview people, if I ever got the nomination, if I ever decide to run, you may go back and interview people from my kindergarten. They'll remember me. Nobody ever comes forward. Nobody knows who he is until later in his life. It's very strange. The whole thing is very strange.
I want him to show his birth certificate. I want him to show his birth certificate. There's something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like.
Oh, my God.
And I just say very simply, why doesn't he show his birth certificate? Why has he spent over $2 million in legal fees to keep this quiet and to keep this silent? And I assumed, although I had heard about it for years, I assumed that he was born in the United States, meaning in Hawaii. I assumed that. The more I go into it, the more suspect it is.
On April 22, 2011, Obama attorney Judith Corley wrote a letter to Loretta Fuddy requesting an exemption of department policy to publicly release Obama's long-form birth certificate. On April 25th, Fuddy granted the president's request and personally witnessed the copying of the long-form birth certificate. That same day, Judith Corley visited the office of the State Health Department in Hawaii to personally collect the copies. On April 27th, President Obama released these copies to the White House press pool and posted a PDF of the document on the White House website.
As many of you have been briefed, we provided additional information today about the site of my birth. We've had every official in Hawaii, Democrat and Republican, every news outlet that has investigated this, confirm that, yes, in fact, I was born in Hawaii, August 4th, 1961, in Kapiolani Hospital. We've posted the certification that is given by the state of Hawaii on the internet for everybody to see. People have provided affidavits that they, in fact, have seen this birth certificate, and yet this thing just keeps on going. We do not have time for this kind of silliness. We got better stuff to do. I've got better stuff to do. We got big problems to solve, and I'm confident we can solve them, but we're going to have to focus on them, not on this. Thanks very much, everybody.
I was just informed while on the helicopter that our president has finally released a birth certificate. I'd want to look at it, but I hope it's true so that we can get on to much more important matters. I am really honored, frankly, to have played such a big role in hopefully getting rid of this issue. Now, we have to look at it. We have to see, is it real? Is it proper? What's on it? But I hope it checks out beautifully. I am really proud. I am really honored.
After images of the long-form certificate were released, there were many who claimed the document was a forgery. In October and November of 2013, 2 affidavits were filed in a district court in Washington state by author and typesetting expert Douglas Vogt. He alleged in his testimony that the long-form birth certificate was a forgery and named Loretta Fuddy as a likely participant in the forgery. Douglas Vogt's claims have been disputed by online fact-checkers who believe the document to be 100% authentic. On December 11, 2013, as part of her official duties, Loretta Fuddy attended a meeting with Hansen's disease patients in a small town on the island of Molokai. Shortly before 3:30 p.m., Fuddy boarded her return flight to Honolulu on this Cessna 208B Grand Caravan aircraft, operated by the company Makani Air. There were 7 other passengers on the flight, including her deputy director Keith Yamamoto. Just after takeoff, disaster struck as passengers heard a loud bang and the engine stopped. Moments later, passenger Ferdinand Puentes began recording everything on his GoPro camera.
We're following breaking news tonight of a plane crash off Kalaupapa, Molokai.
9 people were on board that plane, 8 passengers and 1 pilot, when it went down in the ocean at about 3:45 this afternoon. On board was Hawaii Health Director Loretta Fuddy. Right now, we're told by a Maui County official that 8 people have been rescued, but we don't know who. That leaves 1 person still missing.
Well, we got a call that there was an aircraft missing, and we knew there's a pilot with 8 passengers, and then we started our emergency response procedures and went from there, and that's where we are right now.
There are conflicting reports about the status of some of the passengers and the pilot. What kind of communication have you had? Have you talked to the pilot at this point?
The pilot did call when he got to Kalaupapa. He said everybody's there, and he was okay. So that was good news. And then I had to just pick up with the FAA, and so he gave us the news we wanted to hear.
The Coast Guard at this hour does tell us there have been 8 rescues, 1 person unaccounted for, but of course that conflicts with what Mr. Schuman just told Kenny Choi there live. He says that he spoke to the pilot, and the pilot says that everyone is safe, so we're still trying to figure out exactly the full head count tonight.
We have confirmed that at least 1 person is dead from a plane crash off of Kalaupapa, one of Molokai Air's planes that was to depart at 3:30 from Kalaupapa, headed to Honolulu.
Continue our breaking news coverage off the north shore of Molokai, where a small plane crashed in the ocean this afternoon, and we've learned that 1 person has died. The Cessna, operated by Molokai Air, had just taken off from the Kalaupapa airport at about 3:30 when it went down about a half mile offshore. The 8 passengers and 1 pilot all had life vests on. We're told the Coast Guard picked up 3 of them, the Maui fire chopper picked up 5, and 1 person swam to shore. But in the end, 1 person died. That person has not been identified. We've also learned the director of the Department of Health, Loretta Fuddy, and her deputy director, Keith Yamamoto, were on that flight. They are okay. They were all heading for Honolulu. So we go to Ben Gutierrez live now at the company's headquarters in Honolulu for more. Ben?
Yeah, Keahi, at this point, we're still getting even more details throughout the evening from Molokai. Joining me live right now is Rich Schuman, the CEO and owner of Molokai Air. You've been working the phones, and at this point, you have, what's the latest that you can tell us?
The latest that I know that everybody's been accounted for. They're all being dispatched to various places, some local hospitals. The pilot's on his way back by company aircraft, and that's what I know.
Yeah. At this point, you don't know about the 1 dead that has been reported and confirmed at this point?
No, I don't have any information about that.
And as for the 4 people, I think there's some of them on Queens Hospital, or not Queens Hospital. For the dead person, or 1 fatality rather, that has been confirmed by Maui Fire Department and also by a person on the ground, according to our sources. And you've been unable to get that, obviously, unfortunately. But, well, we'll see. All right, Rich Schuman, CEO of Molokai, and at this point, he has not been able to get that information, even though we have confirmed it. But there are some people who are at hospitals, some of them on Oahu, and that's the latest from here. Reporting live from Honolulu Airport, Ben Gutierrez, Hawaii News Now.
Despite a local news report that she was okay, Loretta Fuddy was pronounced dead by the medical examiner at 6:58 p.m. Hawaii time.
A plane crashed off Molokai this afternoon, and 1 of its passengers died. Sources say that person is Loretta Fuddy, the director of the state health department.
KITV4 has confirmed from 2 state government sources that Hawaii's health department director, Loretta Fuddy, has been killed in that plane crash off Molokai tonight.
The plane was headed to Honolulu. Officials say the director of Hawaii's health department, Loretta Fuddy, was killed. 8 other people were on board, including a pilot. They all survived. 1 of the passengers swam to shore.
Initial reports on the crash gave some conflicting information. The night of the crash, Captain Terry Seelig of the Honolulu Fire Department told local reporters that Fuddy had remained inside the airplane.
1 person died in the tragic crash.
That person remained in the fuselage of the plane, but we don't have much details on it at this time. So it's always a difficult situation when you're not able to get everybody out, but unfortunately that was the case here.
Maui County Police Lieutenant William Wan told the LA Times the next day that Fuddy's body had been recovered from the wreckage. Witnesses to the crash, including other passengers, the pilot, and Coast Guard rescue team, contradicted these accounts. They reported that all passengers exited the plane after the crash and floated with life jackets as they awaited rescue.
Moments after what Clyde Kawasaki called a catastrophic engine failure, the Molokai Air pilot says he radioed in a mayday call for help and ditched the plane into the ocean. He says everyone, including State Health Director Loretta Fuddy, got out of the plane okay.
Went through, there was nobody in the cabin, got to the door, did a quick head count. Everybody was still in the general area of the aircraft.
Phil Holstein says it all happened so fast.
It's nothing like the movies. Nobody was screaming and yelling. We were just trying to get out of there. And it was like the way it was filling with water, it seemed like the best course of action was just get out of there.
He says everyone did make it out okay, and he helped people get into their life vests.
Rosa and Jacob Key are amazed and thrilled to be alive. The Keys said after the plane hit the ocean, everyone evacuated and put on life jackets in the water.
Water was rough, so everybody was the pilot was trying to get everybody together, but that's kind of impossible because of the waves.
Mark Beer and his fellow Coast Guard rescuers had flown from Oahu to the crash site in 30 minutes. The Coast Guard rescuers were also the first ones to get to Health Director Loretta Fuddy. She had drifted about 200 yards away from the nearest survivor.
I knew she was unresponsive at the time. She was not answering my verbal commands or not painful, but any kind of stimuli that I was giving to her.
That's when he moved on to another elderly woman who was alert. Soon after, a second rescuer reached Fuddy.
She was unresponsive, at which point I checked for a pulse, which I couldn't find a pulse.
These accounts were later verified in early January 2014, when Ferdinand Puentes released his GoPro footage to the media, confirming that the pilot and all 8 passengers exited the plane. All subsequent reports of Fuddy's death described her last moments floating in the water, holding Keith Yamamoto's hand, when she became unresponsive and let go of his hand.
Father Patrick Hileas says one male passenger swam to shore while rescue crews plucked people from the water and dropped some off on this beach near the airport. He spoke with Yamamoto, who was holding Fuddy's hand until she let go.
She was kind of paddling with her feet. She wasn't exactly relaxed. And at some stage, she had let go his hand. Probably she had it gripped tightly, and she let go his hand, and he must have tried to see if he could get a response from her, but she had there was no response from that time on.
But at a certain time, she let go his hand, and it seemed like she had passed away, or at least become unconscious right there.
The fact that Loretta Fuddy was the only person to die in the crash, and the conflicting early reports, fueled speculation that her death may not have been an accident. On January 13th, the Maui County Police made a press release stating that Fuddy's cause of death was cardiac arrhythmia and that the manner of death was accidental. Almost 2 months later, the Associated Press reported on a heavily redacted copy of the final autopsy report, which says Loretta Fuddy was observed by witnesses to be fearful and markedly afraid, in addition to citing a history of poor swimming ability. Loretta Fuddy's brother, Louis, told the media that she was not an anxious person and did not have any known heart problems. Fellow passenger Philip Holstein also told the media he did not observe any signs of stress in Loretta Fuddy after the crash.
Before beginning his mile-long swim back to shore, Holstein noticed State Health Director Loretta Fuddy clinging to her deputy, Keith Yamamoto.
I know he was watching her just because, he was with her, they traveled together and all that stuff. As far as her giving any signs of distress, I didn't see anything.
The GoPro video from Puentes confirms this account. 2 days after the crash, an autopsy was performed. Maui Police Detective Jamie Winfrey wrote a report of the autopsy, saying the preliminary cause of Fuddy's death was drowning. 2 days before the final autopsy was completed, Inside Edition reported that Fuddy had drowned. Detective Winfrey's report also included statements from 3 passengers on the plane. None of these passengers reported anything about Loretta Fuddy being markedly afraid or hyperventilating, as stated in the autopsy report. The most crucial witness, who allegedly witnessed Loretta Fuddy's last moments of life, Deputy Health Director Keith Yamamoto, was never interviewed by Maui police or by the news media.
Two and a half years later, the National Transportation Safety Board has finally released a full report into the small plane crash off Molokai that resulted in the death of State Health Director Loretta Fuddy, and it's revealing some key errors. According to the NTSB report, multiple passengers told investigators the pilot provided no safety briefing prior to the flight and that the pouches containing the life vests were difficult to open. The report specifically pinpointed Fuddy's life vest, which it said was for an infant, and that one of the cartridges used to inflate the vest was punctured and empty. The report noted that she was observed by another passenger to be fearful and hyperventilating shortly before losing consciousness.
There are still unanswered questions about the death of Loretta Fuddy. Why were there conflicting reports of Fuddy's death from official sources on the day of the crash? How did both a fire captain and police lieutenant come to the conclusion that Fuddy never left the plane? Why did a local newscast initially report that Loretta Fuddy was okay? Why did the autopsy results change from the preliminary result of drowning to the final result of acute cardiac arrhythmia? Why are there no witness statements in the police report that match the witness statements in the autopsy? Why did the Maui police interview only 3 of the 8 people aboard the plane? Why didn't the police interview the last person to allegedly see Fuddy alive, Keith Yamamoto? To this day, many believe there is more to Loretta Fuddy's death than meets the eye. The mainstream media was quick to denounce conspiracy theories surrounding the crash, but they were some of the same news outlets publishing false information about the events of Fuddy's death. When the official narrative of events is inconsistent or contradictory, it is part of human nature to speculate on what actually did take place. Was the death of Loretta Fuddy the result of a terrible accident, compounded by an undiagnosed heart condition? Was she murdered because of her involvement in producing President Obama's long-form birth certificate? It has even been suggested that Loretta Fuddy's death could have been faked so she could be put into witness protection. What do you think? Follow the links in the description to learn more, and please leave your thoughts in the comments.